I'm not going to start with a hype reel or a list of specs. I want to spend the next few minutes helping you figure out if this saw actually fits the way you work. If you're the sort of person who hesitates before dropping a few $100s on a piece of equipment, you'll appreciate a review that focuses on the real-world experience, not just the headline numbers. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When you walk into a typical garage workshop, the table saw is usually the centerpiece. It's the tool that decides whether you can rip a sheet of plywood cleanly, cut a dado for a bookshelf, or just get a quick trim on a piece of pine. The big decision point is whether you need a full-size cabinet saw that sits permanently in a dedicated space, or something you can tuck away when the job is done. That's the space where the ShopFox 10-inch 2 HP open stand hybrid falls in the middle. It tries to give you the stability of a cabinet saw while keeping the footprint small enough to slide into a corner or be rolled out to the job site. First off, the hybrid concept means the motor sits in a rolling cabinet that you can pull out, but the table and fence are part of an open stand frame that stays on the floor. In practice, that means you can set it up, run a few cuts, then roll it back into a closet without having to dismantle the fence. For anyone with a modest shop or a dedicated hobby space, that flexibility is a genuine time saver. I've seen a lot of hobbyists struggle with the bulk of a cabinet saw and end up storing it out of sight, only to waste time hunting it down when a project suddenly needs a precise rip. With this hybrid, you pull the whole unit out, line it up, and you're ready to go in under a minute. The 2 HP motor is a sweet spot for most DIY projects. It spins a 10-inch blade at the standard 3,600 revolutions per minute, which is more than enough for cutting inch plywood, inch MDF, or a 2-inch hardwood board at a comfortable feed rate. I've run a series of test cuts on a typical pine board and a piece of cherry. The saw handled the pine with barely a wobble, and the cherry was clean enough that I didn't have to sand the cut face. For anyone who builds furniture, does cabinet refacing, or just needs a reliable crosscut and rip for weekend projects, the power level feels just right. You won't be throttling the motor to the point where you hear it strain, and you'll notice the motor staying cool even after a half hour of continuous work. Now let's talk about the fence. ShopFox equips this model with a steel rip fence that slides on its slot rail. The key practical strength is that the fence locks firmly without a lot of fiddling, and the alignment stays true after a few adjustments. In a real-world scenario, that means you can set a rip width, make 10 cuts, and still be within 1/10 of an inch of your target. That precision matters when you're building a cabinet where the side panels need to match the face frame exactly. I also appreciate the way the fence can be set to a zero reference point at the blade's edge, which speeds up repetitive cuts. On the downside, the open stand frame does sacrifice a little rigidity compared to a full cabinet enclosure. When you're making a deep cut in a thick hardwood, you'll feel a subtle vibration that you wouldn't notice on a heavier, fully enclosed saw. It's not enough to ruin the cut, but it does make the finished surface a bit rougher, so you may need to sand or use a finishing pass. If you're planning to rip 2-inch hardwood or larger stock on a regular basis, you'll feel that limitation more acutely. The rip capacity about 25 inches from the blade to the fence is adequate for most home projects, but it falls short of the 30+ inches you get on a dedicated cabinet model. Another practical point is dust collection. The hybrid includes an inch dust port that you can hook up to a shop vacuum or a small dust extractor. In a workshop where you're not dealing with a dedicated dust extraction system, that port does a respectable job pulling most of the fine particles away from the breathing zone. However, the open stand design means there's an extra opening for dust to escape compared to a sealed cabinet. If you're particularly sensitive to airborne dust, you may want to add a small shop vac hood or an aftermarket shroud to improve capture. Who should buy this saw? If you are a hobbyist, a weekend woodworker, or a small shop owner who